Hello, everyone. We're back again. Episode 13, Musky Talk Mondays. We got a cool guest on today. The famous Jim Komar. Let's bring him on. Jim, how you doing, bud?
Famous is it's more like infamous, haven't you heard?
Well, I wanted to be nice.
Infamous.
I wanted you to,
Yeah, stop being nice. No one else is nice to me.
Oh, okay. All right, here's the infamous Jimmy Komar. Do they call you James at all? Like if you miss a strike or something, like a figure eight, do they call you James? James Komar?
Yeah, it's usually stuff that's probably X-rated and shouldn't be put on tape. So we're not real recorded, so we won't go there.
Okay, but
I don't. Usually everybody just throws hook sharpeners at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're usually right around me because they know I catch all the fish. So that's how that works.
Deal.
So they're usually within striking distance, so following me around everywhere.
Well, whenever we have the show from Adam's Garage or at Smoky's, and it's going to be the X-rated version of Musky Talk Mondays.
Well, and we'll discuss. Before John Lehman passed, he gave me an honorary degree in suckerology.
Yeah.
So I have my master's in suckerology from the sucker master himself. So I look forward to that episode.
That will be fun. That definitely will be fun.
Yes, it will.
So let's get off and just, who are you? How do you know everyone? What do you do? When do you start muskie fishing?
Well, I started chasing muskies as soon as I could cast a fishing pole up in Price County, and kind of got the bug real early in my life. And my uncles and grandfather and my dad and stuff, we chased them back when you could still eat them. It wasn't uncommon for my uncle to be putting one on the grill. And
so wait, hold on, I gotta stop you there. How does it taste?
What's that?
How does it taste?
It tastes like big muskie,
I mean,
it was so long ago, and there was so much butter and beer involved. I don't know if anybody even remembers if it tasted good or not, to be honest with you.
All right, carry on. Carry on.
Yeah, but that passion led into just obviously doing it for fun, but then that turned into in my late teenage years, it turned into fishing a couple of local tournaments and kind of getting involved in it in the tournaments, and then obviously I met John Lehman that owned Smokey's Muskie Shop. God rest his soul. We missed him.
Yes.
And he kind of took me under his wing, and I got to start working some of the muskie shows, the Chicago show, and some stories that I don't know if the statute of limitations are quite up yet, so I'll have to keep those quiet for a little while longer. But
when they're up, I want you to come back on and tell those stories. So
you betcha. And there's a lot of guys that when they hear this episode, if they're not listening now, they've heard some of them, and they'll giggle because a lot of them were there. But
good.
So I got to learn from a lot of guys back in the early muskie show days. Working those shows that.
What time frame roughly?
Well, it would have been late '80s, early '90s.
Okay.
Rolling down to Chicago and doing the Milwaukee show and watching some of the legends. George from Eagle Tail and those guys they were making back in those days. You could go to a muskie show and you talk to the guy that made that bait. It wasn't all about just big stores and big fronts with that had 10 booths of space or 20 booths of space, basically just moving their retail store into a show. Back then, each booth was its own lure maker, and that guy made baits out of his garage or his basement or what have you. And so over those years, it was just it was really interesting to see that. But then that started slowing down a little bit because we started fishing tournaments and fishing 10, 12, 15 tournaments a year when the circuits were really hot and heavy when the Wisconsin Muskie Tournament Trail was still going, and that's how I got to know a lot of these guys and just some great fishermen and some great guys and and then after fishing tournaments, and I was guiding a little bit then, but not a lot. It was more about the tournaments and real life, and then started picking up some more guide trips, and then as life progressed, now My good buddy Jake Nelson at Flambeau Forest Outfitters and I kind of sat down and said, let's make this Flambeau Forest Outfitters thing. Let's just all join hands and kind of make it a big team. And and now we have a great team that's we're getting ready for bear hunting right now.
Okay.
We've got 12 hunters coming into camp here pretty soon in September after Labor Day, so that's busy. And
nice.
The musky fishing and walleye fishing are booking, and then come October it's nothing but cast and blast, and that's muskies and grouse hunting. And we'll go grouse hunting in the morning, and then we'll bust some hump and hunt over some great dogs and be in the grouse capital of the world up in Price County, and then in the afternoons we'll go drag suckers or cast or whatever's happening, and then these guys have an honest shot at a really truly good northern Wisconsin muskie. So that'll round out our fall. So things are gonna get busy. Right now it's just trolling on Pewaukee Lake and keeping clients busy and happy and going from there. So that's my story briefly. Yeah.
So you Flambeau Forest Outfitters, guys, look them up on Facebook. Also, the website for more information about that. I mean, great group of guys, great area, great packages. I mean, going out and shooting grouse and then go catch a muskie on a sucker. I mean, come on now, that's an awesome day. We several years ago we found that. So the majority of our grouse clients are actually come from out of state because it's a destination. We don't guide very many people grouse hunting, I would say, from the state of Wisconsin. The majority of them are coming from New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Maine. We've had outfitters from Alaska come to our camp to shoot grouse, and that says something. And they've left with a good time. Texas, Kentucky, and they all come up here to shoot grouse for 3 or 4 days. And what we found is that a lot of these guys it's been a bucket list trip for them. But it's tough terrain. They're not used to hunting that type of area. And I know this isn't a hunting show, but no.
What we did is we decided that it was just a little bit too hard on them to go all day for 3 days.
Okay.
And I said, well, why don't we let's start cast and blast, and let's at least offer them to go muskie fishing in the afternoons. You can change clothes, they can do whatever they want, and then we'll go out and we'll float in the boat in the, northern Wisconsin fall, and they have an honest shot at catching a muskie, which is a fish that most of them will never have a shot at chasing in their life unless they came on that trip. So it's been a real success, and to see the smiles on a lot of these guys' faces, and these guys are true outdoorsmen. They've been around, but shooting a grouse in the grouse capital of the world, and then being able to catch a Wisconsin muskie is it's truly been a pleasure to.
It's hard to beat right there.
It is. It's very hard to beat, and and we really try and work hard at making sure that we've got some of the best properties to hunt, and we're on the fish at the same time, because that's a tough balance.
Oh, I bet. I mean, it's hard enough to do it on either or,
Exactly. So we have our go-to spots, but with Jake being up north full-time, and then the group of guides that we do have, everybody pitches in and works really hard. Benny Imhoff pretty much moves. He's out of the Madison area, and he pretty much moves up there starting bear season, and he's up there. He's our river rat and our turkey slayer, and so we've got if there's from muskies in the Bay of Green Bay with Captain Dave Olson, and to Pewaukee Lake with me, or up north with Jake and those guys. It's we pretty much got all 4 corners of the state covered with some really great guys and a great network.
That's pretty cool. It's it's like a big clan. Like, oh, what do you want to do, and where do you want to do it? All right, well, go over here, and this guy will take you.
Yeah, and we'll get guys that want to go. They want to go trout fishing, and then they want to go goose hunting, and we can do that. We pretty much have a great network of guys that everyone is pitched in and worked together. And rather than having a bunch of guys competing against each other for business, I said let's just do what we all do best, and let's just make one. Let's make one team, and
I like that.
And that's kind of flowed over. That's kind of flowed over into with the different lure manufacturers and stuff like that. That it's about everybody getting along and taking care of each other and making sure that good product that really truly works. That's what's getting promoted. Not just somebody with a bunch of money that wants to splash the pan. So, and it's worked out really good the last few years, and it's been a good time. It's been a fun ride.
It's pretty cool to hear that, how you actually have a whole bunch of different people, a whole big network. So how did you get involved with Elk River?
Well, Elk River is obviously based out of Phillips, Wisconsin, and so with Flambeau Forest Outfitters, that being our headquarters, and Jake Nelson, the head bottle washer, as we call him. He started working with Mark Maroney that owns Elk River, and said there's so many great rod manufacturers out there, but we're looking for something special, or not necessarily custom, but we want to tweak this. And we decided that we were constantly going to Mark with, we kind of like this, we want to do that, and maybe we had a little bit longer handle, and then that turned into, well, maybe it's time that Elk River looks at coming out with a standard line. Okay. Because Mark was making he makes great custom stuff, and that's truly his love. It's his passion.
Yeah.
And he's darn good at what he does. And no one was trying to compete with any of the big boys. He just wanted to have his little shop and make rods for people and make them happy. And that's truly, when you can get wrapped up, I shouldn't say wrapped up, but when you can be involved with a manufacturer at that level, it's a whole lot different than getting sponsored by one of the big boys, and because you have a say in the matter, So we worked really hard to come out with a standard Musky line, and it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into it, because it's a lot of tweaking, a lot of different blank strengths, a lot of handle lengths, and then we just worked really hard, and then one of the things that we do in the off season in the winter is we like to work the shows, and it just seemed like a really good fit that we could promote Flambeau Forest Outfitters, and with our involvement working with Mark at Elk River Rods, and much like we do with Lake X Lures, and now TNA Tackle, it's a family, and when you believe in a product, I've always said this to the guys that aren't necessarily salesmen. It's very easy to sell a product that works, and the only way you're going to know if it works is if you get it out in the hands of the guys that can catch fish, but also the guys that struggle sometimes, or might not have the experience catching a lot of fish in a year. And when those guys start catching fish, it's easy for a product to prove itself. And it's over the years, I've seen a lot of bait makers think that they have a great product, and it probably is, and it will catch a fish or two, but to get it out there where they can survive and keep that product going, sometimes can be very difficult. It's a balance. I've heard some of your interviews with some of your other small bait makers, and they can only make, let's say they only make 50, 100 baits a year. They take orders and then they fill them, and that's great, and that's the proper way to do it. You don't want to ever be behind the 8 ball with that stuff, and that's something that we found over the years, that a lot of guys just got themselves a bad rap. It wasn't because their bait was bad or their product was bad. It was just that they kind of got in over their head, and
they got too big.
They just ticked a lot of people off. Yeah, well, it's just they took too much on that they could handle. So, so over the years, it's just been it's been a labor of love. It doesn't pay the bills for me necessarily, but to watch these companies succeed and be a part of that, and then have that friendship with everyone. I think that's where that whole network really promotes itself, and that promotes our guide, from our guide business to the lure companies, and that that we're blessed to represent and say their family. I mean, that's a big deal. So, and that's a big change from years ago. When I talked about being around the industry, 20 some years ago now, it wasn't uncommon to see one guy, fighting with another guy right in the middle of a show.
Oh, really?
A Musky show. Yeah, I mean, there were guys that it was you were either on that team or you were on that team, and it was very divisive, and it was and there's a bunch of us young guys that grew up seeing that the old way, and we've just all said, you know what, we're all going to work together, and it's really about making sure that everyone that's out in the public, that the average Joe Musky fisherman is getting good product that catches fish. It's not a gimmick. Stuff that we all have in our boats.
Do you feel that has changed over the years? That, so to speak, clickiness.
I think it changed for the better over the last probably, I would say, 6 to 7 years.
Good.
Sometimes I feel, and I'll be honest, I'm starting to feel that maybe it's starting to get back that way. Mm-hmm. So I think. I don't want to play psychologist here or whatever, because everyone's got their own thing. But
yeah.
I want to see everyone in the industry make money. I want to see everyone in the industry produce a bait that catches fish and makes other people catch fish and enjoy the sport.
True.
Because if we push that, it doesn't matter if it's your double 10 or if it's Joe Blow's double 10 or somebody else's double 10. So be it. If you enjoy making that bait and it catches fish and it makes somebody else happy, I mean, that's really what it's all about. That's really what it's all about. So, we've to maintain that attitude, I think, is the best way for the sport to grow and for the industry to grow. Musky fishing is still a minute part of the fishing industry.
It really is.
It's so small. It's with James from T&I from Tackle Industries today, and James that owns Tackle Industries.
Yeah.
He and I had a conversation this morning about some things, and it was very interesting to hear some of the numbers of his bass stuff, his Vexen bass and walleye numbers, mm-hmm. compared to still, as long as he's been in the industry, how small the Musky stuff is.
Is it still
in the overall scheme of a company?
Percentage-wise, pretty small.
Yeah, correct. So when you start looking at those numbers, there's no room for anyone in this industry to get cliquey and to start fighting.
No.
Or to be that bait is bad, or that bait is crap, or that bait is whatever. It only damages everyone that's involved. And now I'm talking from a guide standpoint. I'm talking from a retailer standpoint, a bait manufacturer standpoint.
A consumer standpoint. Do us any. It
doesn't do the industry. It doesn't do the industry any favors by doing that. So, if we all stick together and pump each other, and just if somebody wants to buy an Angry Dragon instead of a Musky Magnet Bucktail, then good for Angry Dragon.
Yeah.
Then good for TNA Tackle, because the next guy, because TNA Tackle's not going to be upset when they buy one of your bucktails.
No,
that's the way it is, and it's if we all stick together in that realm, that's really how we've gotten to where we are today. Is just having that attitude from bait makers to rod makers to. I've always said that even though I'm obviously my heart and soul is in Elk River. And the work that I've helped put in there, and that I've been blessed to be allowed to. Mm-hmm. Anybody that comes in our booth, if I'm in the Elk River booth, I'll always say, well, how does it compare to this rod? Well, that rod isn't any better or worse. It's a great rod. I want you to put this rod in your hand. Here's the difference between this Elk River rod and a comparable big company rod.
Yeah.
Price range, but what you get for your money.
Okay.
And then go walk around the show and put all the different rods in your hands. I want you to go over to Tackle Industries. I want you to go over to St. Croix. I want you to go to G. Loomis. I want you to go to every rod maker here. And then here's the difference. This is the difference. If you like it, come on back. And sometimes you might not get as many sales, but
you're
the
honest.
People that do,
you're not screwing
but you're
people
honest
over or anything like that. You're like, hey, this is what this rod can do. This is what it's good at. This is what it everything, the specifics. And if that's something you're looking for, by all means, grab that. If that's the perfect rod for you, and if it's not, hey, go find your perfect rod.
That's right. And one of the nice things about Elk River rods is that because he is, even though it's Elk River custom rods, and and Mark has the standard line, which some people, they hear that word custom and they think, well, it's just a custom rod builder, and there's a big difference. Mark is in that in-between market. Well, Elk River Custom Rods is in between that market where he can build you anything custom you want. He can build you. We have a gentleman that comes in once a year, and he wants a 9-foot 1-inch rod because he wants his rod 1 inch bigger than his buddies who have 9-foot rods.
Oh my god!
and Mark will build it for him, and that's not a problem, And he special orders that rod, and we shake our heads and laugh, and he says, "Hey, I don't care what it costs. I want my 9-foot rod to be 1 inch bigger than the rest of my buddies when I go to Canada." And if that's how he wants to spend his retirement money, then more power to him.
True, very true.
Yep. And so we have that. That's the one. Even though we have the standard line, which I feel, like I said before, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into taking a rod out for a day and walking back in the shop and saying, we got to tweak this, we got to tweak that. Mm-hmm. If it wouldn't have been for a craftsman like Mark at Elk River, we wouldn't have the rods we wouldn't have the standard line that we have today. But there's a guy that, he listened to the guys that fished. It's not about what can I do to make it cheaper? What can I do to get it done faster? It's about what works and what are the guys that are out there using these tools. What are they telling me? Yeah, what do they need? If this isn't going to work, I don't want it out there. And he's been, and it's been a true pleasure to work with it. And we have guys from Musky Road Rules and Tony Grant on staff to Mike Kep right here in Pewaukee, who's now fishing Elk River rods. So
yep, saw that one.
Jason Smith up in the Eau Claire area and Rabska. And some of the Minnesota boys are even, we lured them in with some 9-foot rods, and they seem to be pretty happy so far. So,
I like that.
And so here we expand a little bit, and, but the biggest thing is that when you call the shop at Elk River Rods, if for some reason you have a problem, which there's very few, when you call the shop, there's a pretty good chance that the guy that built your rod's going to answer the phone.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so, and he understands that, on the high end, you're going to end up spending $330, $350 on a musky rod with titanium TI Gold Eye standard. Which a lot of the big box companies, either if they will put them on for you, after you spend $500, they want another $60 for those. He just puts them on right away. And he even puts them on the lower end. I shouldn't say lower end, but the little bit, the line down from the ERX, which is the number one line. We just said, you know what, put those good eyes on there. Just because a guy can't afford a $350 musky pole, he should be able to, the guy that's buying the $200 musky pole should at least have the good titanium eyes on there. That'll never break, never scratch, never worry about it.
I like that.
And, and then you get into a price point for a guy that, maybe can't, he can't have 7 $340 fishing poles in his boat. We understand it. We all started somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's those little things that when you're with a small company like that, like I look at like John Carlson up at Ross's Bait Shop in Phillips. He's a local guy up there with a small bait shop. He's getting a decent online presence, and but the stuff that he carries is it's the stuff. It's the stuff that works. Yeah, it's the stuff that works. He's not carrying stuff that just to make a buck. But he's that small town bait shop guy. He's not a big retailer. He's not overcharged. It's stuff you can't get at a big box store.
No.
And it's the stuff that the guys are using. And And I'm just using John. I guess I'm just using Ross's Sports Shop as an example. Of the smaller places that if all kind of teamed up and stuck together, and now we're seeing with the advent of these online retailers, they're doing they've learned, they've seen it work, and now you're getting custom colors shipped to those online retailers, and it's the stuff. Again, it's the stuff that works. It's the stuff that guides. If you jump in a bowl with one of the guides or one of the tournament dudes, you're going to see the same stuff in those shops. Yep. The only thing you're not going to see is the Black Ops stuff, and
of course,
and
that's my favorite stuff
exactly.
right there.
And that is the favorite stuff. So it's those little things that we get to test out. And I look back at and it'd be nice if we could get John Klaczewski from Lake X Lures on the show. Has he been on yet?
No, he has not.
No, we need to get him on there. He's not. I don't know how social he's going to be. He might need some pimping, but I'll work on him for you.
Work on him, and we'll get him on here.
But yep.
You kind of you dabbled in Lake X, and you probably got to see that creation, didn't you?
I remember sitting around. The guys were sitting around a fire pit one day after an epic Lake of the Woods trip, and a certain topwater bait the fish were blowing them up, but blowing them out of the water. Mm-hmm. And I remember a couple of the boys sitting around saying, you know what, go back in the wood shop, jump on your lathe, and make one that's a little heavier, so it sits lower in the water. Make one. And although the original Lake X stuff was all wood, and it was the guys tinkering, and it took a long time and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I won't steal John's interview from him, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that. And obviously, the craze that it is today. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a craze from over marketing. It's a craze because these baits catch fish.
They work.
And
I can't catch fish.
And they work.
But I just can't catch fucking fish, period. So that doesn't matter. But I see videos that they do work. So I believe it.
We can fix that, buddy. We can fix that.
Well, we'll talk in the future about that. But no, it's because they work. You put in all that time and effort, and they didn't get blown up for new craze. Well, of course, it's the new thing. Well, but that new thing also works. So it was like a double whammy.
It is, and I can tell you, I remember getting a phone call, in the early days at one of the shows saying, can you come to the Milwaukee Musky show and work the booth? And it was. I'm not saying anybody was struggling, but it wasn't the splash that it necessarily could have been, right? Mm-hmm. And so from a self-taught marketing dude here, at least in the fishing industry,
good enough.
It was like hold on a minute, what are we doing wrong? We know this bait catches fish. We've been catching fish on this bait for 10 years. Mm-hmm. There's been research and development went into the whole injection molding process so that the bait worked exactly molded as it did when it was wood. Everything's the same. The sound's the same. The buoyancy is the same. Everything's the same. It took a long time and a lot of effort to make sure that before that product went out, it worked as good as the wood bait that we once remembered. And it didn't come out before it was ready. And it came out and it was ready. But it was just a matter of getting it in the right people's hands outside of our group.
Yeah.
And outside of that, what was once a Black Ops bait now has to go sell itself. Well, a bait's not going to sell itself. Just a bunch of guys saying that they caught fish on it doesn't count.
No.
And what it was a matter of is just getting the bait, and Adam from TNA, I've preached this to him time and time again, getting your bait that we know works. We know it works.
Yes.
Right? We know it catches fish. Okay, but now to get that bait in the people's hands that are in the industry so that they can catch fish on it.
Who have a
and then once
presence.
they start, and exactly. And once that word gets out, then people are like, okay, it's not a gimmick. It's not just some guy trying to get away with something and make a bunch of money. It's we saw that over the years with look at the baits that are still around that everyone said, well, it's just going to be a fad. The double cowgirl.
Huh.
You know, I caught my 55-inch vermilion fish on a double cowgirl. It was the first double cowgirl I ever bought.
Really?
You know, and I bought it at Pastica's in Hayward on the way to vermilion. Because everyone said I had to have a dang ass double cowgirl, right? So I went up and I did, and you know what? Hey, she worked on day 2.
Hey,
you know,
that
and
55, that's more than working. That's,
yep. Well, exactly, and it's the only fish that bait's caught because it's still hanging on her photograph down in my basement.
Yeah, you retired it right then and there.
She was done. It was like shooting a 10-point buck on opening day, right there.
You're like, all right, call her a day.
Yep.
Bust out the blackberry brandy.
Yep, that's right. It's about exactly what happened. And but look at the Weagle. Let's look at some of the biggest, the greatest, most known bait, the Bulldog. Look at Musky Innovations. I mean, everything that those guys put together, they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in over the years. And and there's a guy that started garage pouring baits in a garage out of a 5-gallon bucket, and look at where they are today, and that bait still keeps catching fish, and all the baits that have come after it and have influenced other bait makers, like the other products like the Medusa or all these other bait makers that say, okay, you know what, it ain't the same, but let's make it a little different, and let's just give them a different look. Hey, they're all great baits, and they all catch a lot of fish, and it's actually refreshing to see people get innovative, and it's an art. Yeah, it truly is. It's been an exciting ride, and then as technology's grown.
Oh my God!
I
was talking to Adam from Madtown this past expo, and I'm like, dude, I can't wait for 3D printing to start influencing the muskie scene, because that's going to be ridiculous.
It's on the verge.
Yep.
I've already been a good friend of mine owns a company that does that, and we've had some talks. Let's put it that way, and there's some Black Ops stuff going on. So
good.
We'll just see. We're gonna see who wants to buy that idea from me.
Can we buy it with love?
You can buy it with love. We'll see. We don't even know if it works yet. It's a little early for that. We got about 5 years to go. But
all right, good enough.
We got some fish to catch on some other Black Ops baits.
So with you being associated with Lake X and Elk River, and while we're speaking of Black Ops, is there any Black Ops baits or rods that are in the making? And if so, what details can you tell us without getting yourself killed?
You're tricky. So I will say that there's some really great stuff that's going to be coming out of Lake X. Of course, I'm not privy to really discuss it much, but it's going to be some really cool stuff, and it's really produced very well this year.
Cool.
And I mean big fish stuff.
Nice.
But it's one of those things where those guys are up there. They're in the shop and they're working diligently and very hard to make sure that this final product is dialed. There will be no mistakes with it. There will be no problems with
any sort of time frame on that, like next shows or like this upcoming show season, next show season, or just time will tell?
A little Tweety Bird has told me that possibly everyone might be able to see everything that's been going on by this show season.
Cool.
So I think it's going to be really neat. It's going to be out of the box, especially for Lake X.
Okay.
And as well as the topwater, obviously all the topwater line is going to keep going.
Oh, of course.
And it always will. But there's a lot of different things in the works. It's just a matter of those guys up there north of Highway 8 sitting down and deciding exactly what they want to do. And when it comes out, it's going to be cool. It will come out. It's just a matter of if it's going to come out this show season or next. But what I will say is that all of the prototypes have been putting very, very big fish in a lot of guys' boats. So, and on a consistent basis.
I like.
Yeah, it is. It's really neat. It's really neat.
Hey, I'm not even mad that like we can't even know anything, because how long they took to finalize that top water and the success and like how well and thoroughly thought out everything has been about that. Take that, put it towards this bait. We'll sit and wait for 2 years to get that one. I don't care. That's really what it's about. I had another conversation with someone today that I had gotten some information that someone was going to start copying the Lake X lure line overseas and start shipping them in. Mm-hmm. And the prototypes that they brought back, they couldn't make them run. They couldn't make them run right. I actually know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and the truth is that is it really worth it at that point? Are you gonna go out there and sell something that doesn't work right, just to make a buck? Because then with the rest of your lures, people are always going to be suspect of buying from you, so it's not worth it. Those guys up at Lake X, listen, everyone thinks I know they're selling a lot of baits, and sometimes over the years it's been hard to get them, and the guys on the flea, they were ripping everyone off, and everyone was getting all antsy,
The fucking flea, there.
Yeah, eh? But that's not a problem anymore. You know what?
No.
Production is right where it needs to be. There's still a weight on baits, but you're going to get them. And again, you're talking about a guy that started in his garage with a wood lathe. Mm-hmm. And has worked himself up to one of the most, at least in the last 10 years, one of the more iconic musky catching baits that are out there, And again, there's other baits that do the same thing, and his bait's a little bit different. It rides a little bit lower in the water. The hookup percentage is better than a lot of other baits out there, and it's high impact plastic, so it's not going to soak up water like wood.
No.
And so there's all those different little factors that make it just a little bit better, or a little bit different at least. A little bit different plop, a little bit different tail, and and that's why it's worked. It's there's a reason that his baits are in high demand. And
oh yeah.
And so now as the new stuff comes, some of the new things start popping, a guy doesn't just have one bait that's a topwater bait in his brain. And you're a lure maker yourself. Your brain's always ticking.
Oh, of course.
And
everything.
Yep. Well, you guys are creative. So keeping you guys creating stuff is what keeps the rest of us having fun too.
Me and my girlfriend went to the Renaissance Fair. We look over in a shop and there's a whole bunch of feathers, and I'm like, "Ooh, feathers! I want to go look what they're." And it was headdresses. I'm like, "I don't care if there's hackle over there. I want to go look at them."
I want to look at hackle.
Yeah,
that's right.
So yeah,
I hear you.
We got some questions. As promised, this first half was going to be a serious interview. In the next half, if you guys have any questions for the infamous Jim Komar, blast away. So Trey Fazio has the first question. Can you use a river rod on a lake?
Here we go. Well, first of all, if you could tell Trey that I do want his bear bait, if you could respond to him with that information.
All right.
Because I haven't gotten back to him.
Trey,
so I need that bear bait. I will call him as soon as I can. And yes, you can use a river rod on a lake, and you can use a lake rod on a river. The difference is that a river has more current, and that's other than that, the rods can be used both ways. Yes, that's correct.
So what happens if you use a Lake X lure on an Elk River rod?
Well, because the Lake X lures are sponsored, John's sponsored by St. Croix. Mm-hmm. They don't work quite as well, but we do catch. We catch a lot more fish, just not bigger fish. So that's the difference.
Okay.
So we usually win more tournaments on a Lake X lure with an Elk River rod, but John catches bigger fish with a St. Croix rod on a Lake X lure. Yeah, it's same leader, same line, same reel. But it's just the rod it's all about that. It's sometimes I can't pin it. When I get that pattern down, I'm gonna bring that to the seminar circuit, and we'll get that done.
Perfect. I'll let me know when you figure that out, and we get back on here and let the people know. So
Absolutely.
We got what was the other question? From Dave. Can you ask Jim what's the difference from a lake to a river?
Again, we're back to current again.
Yeah. Okay.
A river has current. A lake, it has current when there's wind, but there's always a current in the river. And listen, fishing a lake is just like fishing a river, but a river has more current. And once everyone understands that pattern, I mean, you can go from a lake to a river any day. It's very important that everyone understands that. This has taken years to develop this system.
Now, I read somewhere in a very old book, look at the eddies, find the eddies.
Eddies. Yes. Eddies are very important. But slack water is important too, because if they're not in the eddies, then you have to check the slack water.
Yeah, but
it's right. It's like if you have a wind-blown point.
Of course. Then
I mean, sometimes they're on the wind. Yeah, sometimes they're on the wind-blown point. But what I found through all my years of musky fishing, that if they're not on the wind-blown point, you have to fish the non-wind-blown point to see if they're there.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that, I mean, when you're on a lake, it's kind of like a big eddy. So you're kind of like, well, there's nothing here.
Well, and then if you're fishing a busy southeastern Wisconsin lake, where all the boats there's water skiers and all the other stuff and everything's going on. Well, then it's just a big toilet bowl.
Yeah. So
then you have to determine if it's clockwise or counterclockwise, because the fish set up different.
Well, I think it's counterclockwise if you're on the southern hemisphere, and we're on the northern, so it's gotta be clockwise.
Not in southeast Wisconsin, because it depends on which way the water skiers are going that day.
Oh.
I
know on other lakes that you can go clockwise. I know, there are a couple lakes down in Kenosha.
Yes, where they have a clockwise only.
Yes.
Thing. Well, then those fish are very, very predictable.
Oh, of course, it's only clockwise. I mean, but then you go out over here, Pewaukee or something, and you just got going all over the place. I mean, it's cross currents all over the place.
Well, and that's right. And when we're trolling the West Basin here, I'll come out and I'll see everybody trolling clockwise, and I'll be like, well, they're not catching fish. I'll go counterclockwise and I'll catch fish that day.
Okay.
It really is. This is years of experience talking here.
I mean, I'm going to pay attention to that because I've been dabbling in trolling, and which I have been actually going counterclockwise, and I haven't gotten crap. So next time I go out there, I'm going to go clockwise. I'm going to try that out.
You know what? You have to give it a try. Yep, give it a try. Water temperatures can set up on that a little bit. You want to watch your moon phases.
Yep.
Your majors and your minors, but you know what? It's something you want to put in the toolbox, buddy.
Well, I don't think I'm ever going to be a full-time troller, but again, something in the toolbox. So we got that one. Now this one's interesting because I heard about a tiger being caught on Pewaukee. So how can you tell if there is a tiger or a barred muskie on your graph? This is a big deal. So, this is years of experience. Have it's been dialed in. An old timer that used to use the old green machine, he always swore that he could tell if it was a tiger muskie or not. And I said, no, you can't do it. And as the electronics got better and better and better, and now today, what we've done is we've gone up north and we've worked on that Lowrance graph real hard. And if you know what you're doing, you can tell if that muskie that's going to eat your sucker in October with the cooler water is a tiger muskie or not. And you just got to call it. Now, can you only do it in fall time? Is the cold
we'll
water
have to do
necessary?
We'll have to do it in fall. You're going to have a beer and some real Wisconsin cheese. And we'll sit in the front of the boat and we'll get the sucker float.
I don't drink though, Jim.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. Well.
Coffee?
That's fine. Coffee's fine. Red Bull, whatever you want.
All right. I can do that. Okay.
Grab your drink of choice. We'll have some real Wisconsin cheese and some bear jerky.
Okay.
And we'll jump in the front of the Ranger 619 VS with the Merc 250, and we'll just powered by Minn Kota. Thank you, little baby Jesus, for everything. Yep. And Smokey's Musky Shop, Lake X Lures, and Elk River Rods, and little baby Jesus, and I'll show you. And now the thing is that to take you to the next Zen level it's a big deal. Now to get your black belt, tiger muskie, or a big greenhead, is to tell if it's a green tiger muskie or a brown tiger muskie. Now, those are very hard to come by because you don't see a lot of brown tiger muskies.
No.
But when you do see one, it's very important to catch it to confirm what you saw on the graph was a brown tiger versus a green tiger. And it's
you're going to be able to tell the difference on the graph.
Very, very difficult. Well, yeah, absolutely. You have to. It's all about dots and stripes.
Yeah. No, I'm saying like you're going to be able to tell the difference between a brown and a green, correct, on the graph?
Well, exactly. That's what we do. I mean, that's how good we are.
Now, what happens?
You know, I mean,
well, you don't necessarily have to catch it. I mean, you can take snapshots of your locators now.
Well, exactly. But see, we like to use the old locators to keep everything fair.
Oh.
So what we do is we don't use all those super fancy electronics because we like to keep it fair.
I think
otherwise,
I'm going to use that line now. I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
I don't have a Helix 12 because I want to keep it fair, you guys. I'm running this
Hummingbird
689 SI. You know,
just
to keep it fair.
Yeah.
Just to keep it fair.
Yeah. We just do this stuff to keep it fair. You know, a funny story is when my good buddy Tommy Wilson, he was a big bass guy, and he caught his first muskie in a tournament with me because my partner backed out, and this is 20 years ago. And I'm like, I just need a guy that knows how to fish. Mm-hmm. I can handle the rest. And I handed him a muskie rod. I handed him a bucktail that I tied, and he caught a 40-incher first thing in the tournament.
Wow.
And he's like, I really dig this stuff. And all of a sudden, we started fishing all these tournaments. We didn't have a graph on the Skeeter for 2 seasons, and we were still running and gunning for Team of the Year for a couple of years, you know, without a graph.
That's pretty cool.
It was just going where no one else was going. Not following the crowd, doing things out of the box and catching, and learning fish and learning how fish act. And sure, graphs are a great thing, and obviously none of us could live without them anymore.
No.
But I think back to those days. I think back to our grandfather's days or our dad's days when they were bouncing around a middle of a lake with an anchor trying to figure out where the hump was.
Yep.
And that's where they caught all the walleyes, you know.
Or dragging a spoon
and
so you can find the weeds.
If those guys could do it back then, you know, with all the fancy stuff we have now, if a guy is struggling nowadays, it's probably because he's doing the same thing over and over again,
mm-hmm.
and not getting out of the box. You know, how many guys would fish the east end of Pewaukee Lake with a topwater bait in August when the water's 80 degrees? I'm standing here right now. I am watching everyone down on the west end do a big circle trolling.
Yeah.
And there are no fishing. There's not one fishing. There's one fishing boat on the east end that I can see right now.
That's because Joel's up north.
That's because Joel's up north is right. Yep. But you know, you could have the entire east end of yourself, and everyone thinks that these muskies on the east end don't eat. Well, they're here. Mm-hmm. They're right here. They're. I'm looking down off the end of the pier, and there are fish scattered throughout this entire eastern basin. But what does everyone do? You know, they just go through the same thing over and over again and expect the same results, right? So
we got another question, kind of
sure.
regarding like where'd it go? Like locations of fish from Dave Sella. What about if the fish are not on the rocks? Where do I fish?
Well, you definitely want to fish the weeds. Okay. And so if they're not on the rocks, then definitely try the weeds. Mm-hmm. But here's the trick. Now, this is years of experience.
Okay.
Years of experience here. If they're not on the rocks and they're not on the weeds, you want to try the rocks that have weeds on them. Very important.
Like cabbage weeds or like that moss that grows on the bottom?
Any weeds. You got to try it out. It might be the moss weeds. It might be the cabbage weeds. It might be the grass. Okay. But if you have rocks, if you've got rocks, all right, and they're not on those rocks, then definitely go try the weeds. But if they're not on the weeds, then you need to find rocks that have weeds. It's very important. Everyone should write this down in their notebook. It's a very important tactic.
Rocks.
Okay, very important.
Weeds. Rocks with weeds.
With weeds. Very important. Okay. Very important. Put that in your notebook. Don't forget it. Yep. It's no different. Listen. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I got it saved on my on our Facebook Live. I can just go back to it.
Sure. You can go back to it. All right.
With the notebook and take some of these down, especially about that brown and green tigers. I want to learn more about those.
Yeah. But it's again, this is black belt stuff here, buddy. So this is,
well,
you can't just.
That's why I'm going to go back with the notebook, write it down. We'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
So we got from Tim Davey. Jim, what's your favorite beer on the water?
On the water, actually, I prefer a beer cans that has the cap. Right?
Beer cans with the caps.
Yep. There's the pints that have the caps. You can put the screw-on cap so that you don't tip it over in the boat. See, very, 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 very important.
Especially if you're fishing those windblown shorelines,
Yeah, I know. And you start bumping into rocks, or you start snagging in weeds and stuff like that, or you God forbid you actually hook a fish.
Right.
You want, as long as the beer is a pint, it's cold, and it has a cap that you can keep on it when you're not drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beer that every good stick should have in his boat.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Good talk.
I believe this is our last questions, then I got to start asking the serious ones. Randy Allen, he's needing a left-handed rod. He needs a left-handed rod.
Yeah. Well, what I suggest he does is go to www.elkrivercustomrods.com.
Mm-hmm.
Get the phone number there and talk to Mark, the proprietor of the shop there, and he would be more than happy to set you up with a left-handed rod. I guess my question is, does he want a jerkbait rod, or is he looking for a bucktail rod?
Jerkbait or bucktail?
Sometimes those.
And then what about split grip or full grip?
Well, and you got to get into that, because if you're left-handed, you want to make sure the split grip's on the right side.
Exactly.
So, it's all about being efficient with this stuff.
Well, I think if he
goes
there, finds the number, I think they could work him out with it.
Yeah, Mark will hook him up. Now, a lot of people don't know that what he should know is that if he calls Lake X Lures,
mm-hmm.
Or if you call Kramer Brothers up in Minnesota,
yeah.
Kramer Brothers Tackle, they make the number 7 and number 9 Revolution in left-handed models.
Did that just
so he probably want to. Yeah, well, it's kind of they don't want us pushing it too much.
I need to know.
Because
need to know.
Yeah, they don't want to have to make a bunch of them. So
okay.
If you do call up and ask, I'm pretty sure Mike Kramer would make you a left-handed Revolution. You can get it in the Flash series or Marabou. He really likes to tie a lot of Marabou. So yeah, get the left-handed. I would get the left-handed number 7 in Marabou. For a lefty, that's a pretty big deal. That's a good score.
Well,
that's the best question of the night.
I am a lefty, so I might actually have to, send him an email after this.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Yep. I believe last 2 questions, guys, and then my final question. Adam is asking, ice fishing. Does the windblown point come into play during ice fishing?
Does the what?
The windblown point come into play when you're ice fishing?
The windblown point always comes into play during ice fishing. Okay. After years of taking guys up to catch 40-inch northern pike up on Lake of the Woods with Captain Dan Bush,
mm-hmm.
the host of Cutting Edge Outdoors on 105.7 The Fan every Saturday morning. He taught me how to play the wind on the ice. Very, very important, because those fish set up different, much like going clockwise and counterclockwise.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize those fish set up way different under the ice when the wind changes direction. So again, put that in your notebook if you're ice fishing, boys and girls.
Final question from Dave: when you have a fish coming in, do you leave the trolling motor on?
Okay, now I know which Dave that is.
Dave Sella.
And yeah. Well, he happened to be standing next to me when I lost a 4-footer a few weeks ago.
Oh boy!
And she ate on the deep figure 8. Mm-hmm. I was on my knees in the front of the boat, and I came around on my super wide outside turn away from the boat, and she was on a Black Ops TNA bait, and she ate, and it wasn't pretty. And I only had the rod in my left hand because instead of just telling someone to turn the trolling motor off, I reached over with my right hand while I was on my knees and had the rod buried to the reel because she was down deep.
Yeah.
And as soon as I hit the button for the trolling motor, that's when she ate and she pinned me, and it was bad. I'm still not over it, and I would like to thank Dave Sella for bringing that topic up. And I will discuss that with him later in private.
Okay, fair enough. So,
she was a pretty fish.
The
Yep.
most important question and final question of the night is your funniest. And this, I'm going to allow you to broaden it because it was your creation. Not just your funny boat launch story, your funniest fishing story.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
You know what? This could be a chapter in and of itself. You know, I'll tell you what. A couple of years ago, Dave and Rick at the Musky shop and stuff, we used to call it breakfast beers on Sundays. And one of the true things that I've always enjoyed was not being out with the crowds. Mm-hmm. And so I would go and sit. I would go and sit at the Musky shop and we'd all reminisce and tell stories and catch up on what was going on or whatever. And we would watch people just launch boats. And we started. And as you well know, there's a chalkboard outside of Smokey's Musky shop, Smokey's Musky and Bait Shop in Pewaukee Lake, that everyone would what they thought would write down their catch for the night. Well, that didn't quite work as planned, but and now it's become the boat launch oops board. So people that have forgot their plug, people that have run aground, people that have been arrested, people that have been stabbed, people that have left their boats, didn't tie their trailers up, people that have left their straps on, people that are out of gas. And so this myriad of things happens at any boat launch during the year. And but I think one of my favorite fishing stories is when that Musky board first went up, a bunch of us looked at John Smokey Lunge Lehman and said, all you're doing is going to create a big frickin' stir with all the boys. And all it's going to be is nothing but testosterone. Mm-hmm. And everyone's going to be using that piece of chalk to write whatever they think they want to write to one-up everybody. So finally, after everybody was out there catching muskies, and every day somebody would one-up the next guy, Captain Dan Bush decided to create a fictitious person. And his name was Juan Sanchez. And Juan Sanchez every night would come in after all the big boys would come off the lake, and if they caught a 48, Juan Sanchez would catch a 48 and a half. And if they caught a 46, he would catch a 47. And the bait that he would catch this bait on it was called a Go Deeper. Okay? So this went on for half a summer. So then as soon as everyone started asking who in the hell is Juan Sanchez, and what the hell is a Go Deeper? And bait shops throughout the Midwest are getting phone calls for a Go Deeper because it's catching all these fish on Pewaukee Lake. And who the hell's Juan Sanchez? Well then I have to be honest with you. Juan's wife, Juanita, started catching bigger fish than Juan. No. So Juanita Sanchez was fishing with the Go Deeper and started outdoing Juan and everyone else. And Juan and Juanita were simply a ghost. And it wasn't until everyone realized that they were acting like a bunch of freaking buffoons, one-upping each other, and who really cares about how big of a fish you caught today or how many you caught on your Bagley DV4, that Juan Sanchez and Juanita Sanchez and a Go Deeper were simply to point out the fact that everyone needs to humble themselves and enjoy the sport for what it is.
Oh, fuck. Dude,
so,
my calf is cramping.
and truly that if I could end it with the best fishing story, that's probably one of them. I've got 20 hours for you of stories about boat launches and cars in the water and all of that stuff. But if there's one thing that I would love to end this interview with, is that little story right there was really about being humble and remembering that every single one of us that has been blessed 50-incher, let alone a bunch of 50-inchers, and then and they need to be humble. because we all started off catching our first fish, whether you were 7 years old and didn't know what the heck you were doing, or you were 27 when you caught your first one, or you were 57 when you caught your first one. It's all about all of us enjoying the sport, and that's, I think a lot of times it's people forget that. And as we always say at Flambeau Forest Outfitters, you know what? It's okay to be good, but do it with your head down, and just go about your business. It ain't about what's on Facebook. It isn't about what you do. It's about making your clients happy, your customers happy, the product companies that you represent, making them proud, and making sure that the people that are that aren't necessarily in the industry, that are just enjoying the sport, truly have an opportunity to enjoy the sport. And and that's, so always remember, go deeper.
Go deeper. I don't know why, but I found that so funny. Even though you had like a great, like, humbling story behind it, I don't know why. Because I could just imagine everyone.
It's a funny story, and boy,
just calling all these bait shops, like, trying to be secret about it too. Be like, hey, you got any go deepers?
You got any go deepers? Yeah. Can you imagine how many calls Raleigh and Helen's got looking for a go deeper from a 414 area code or a 262 area code? Looking for a damn go deeper. What the hell are you talking about? You're the 17th phone call we got up here for looking for a go deeper.
Oh my God.
What's a go deeper?
You got me crying a little bit. I don't know why. That was funny.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, thanks so much, man. This has been a fun.
Betcha.
You'll be back on.
Yeah,
so we'll talk about other things. So.
You betcha. Great time, and you're doing a great job on your show, and a lot of guys are talking about it and loving it, so keep up the good work, and we'll talk.
All right, Jimmy, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, homie. I don't know why I found that so funny. I was just picturing all these guys just calling and just secretly asking about a go deeper. That was freaking hilarious. But he had a true humbling story behind it, and it's so true. I don't know. What more can you say? I finally got Komar on. I'm happy. He's always been busy doing adult stuff. So, I don't know. Watch it again. That was funny. He'll be back on. Until next week, I don't know. Next week is the... Come on, computer. The 14th. Okay, so the 14th. The 21st, I'll be out of town, fishing somewhere up north. We'll hunt someone good down for the 14th. If anyone has any information, I'm going to use my show to help me get things. If anyone has a good reference to a cabin up north, northern Wisconsin, north central, northwestern, northeastern, I'm looking for a place to rent a cabin, so me and my girlfriend can go musky fishing. That'd be cool. If you mess me do that, that'd be awesome. Other than that, I don't know, until next week, everyone. Forgot my saying. That's embarrassing. Let's look at it. Everything's slime in prime time. That's what it was. God damn it, I'm stupid. Oh well. Till next week, everything. Yeah. Alright, I'll talk to you later, guys.